Today I'm drawing the singer Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons. The quote is from the song Dream off their album Smoke and Mirrors. I'm beginning by coloring in his nostrils with the Prismacolor black. Now I'm taking the color light umber to shade the bottom and sides of his nose. Now I will be using sienna brown to go over those same areas and to provide some warmth. Now I'm using the color peach as a transition between these darker shades and lighter shades that I will use next. I'm now repeating the same process that I used on his nose, on his eyes. Now that the shadows are finished, I'm going in with light peach to begin filling in the lighter areas of the face. Next, I will be using the color cream on high points on his face, like the bridge of his nose, his cheeks, and his forehead. And finally, I'm taking the color white to highlight. This creates an illusion of depth and a sense that light is hitting this area. The rest of his face is fairly light, so I will just be sticking to light peach, cream, and white. Now for the darkest areas, such as the creases of his eyes and the corners of his mouth, I will be using the color dark umber. And then I'll begin working on the eyes, starting with the pupils, just using black. I will also be using that black to color in the sides of his iris and in the shadowed parts of his eyes. Now I'm using slate gray to begin coloring in his iris, and filling in the rest of his iris with the color cloud blue. Here, I'm adding short lines of different lengths in his iris. This transforms what was a blue circle into a realistic human eye, and for this, I am using black. Now I'm just adding some shadows in his eyes with black, and then going over them with white to create a grayish transition in his eyeball. Now I'm filling in his tear duct area with dark umber and light umber. Now I'm mixing the colors peach and white to fill in his waterline. Moving on to his eyebrows, I'm beginning with dark umber to fill in the darkest areas of his eyebrows. Because these areas are so dark and dense, we don't need to use individual strokes, but for this light umber, I am using individual strokes to create the illusion of hair. Before I go any farther, I am using a colorless blending pencil to blend all those colors together. Then I'm using the color white to fade out the ends of his eyebrows and filling in additional hairs with the color dark umber. Then I'm using dark umber again in the corners of his mouth and light umber in the center of his mouth. Then to blend that out, I will be using the color peach. Now, even though it may sound odd, I'm going to be using the color French Gray 20% to darken his upper lip before I lay the color Blush Pink on top. This will make the color more muted and not as brightly colored pink. Now I'm outlining the lips slightly using dark umber and blending that together with French Gray 20% again. Now to highlight the bottom of his lip, I'm using the color white. I'm moving on to his beard now, starting with the color Sienna Brown. When drawing facial hair, you want no uniformity. You want short strokes in random directions. I'll be using the color light umber to fill in other areas of his beard, such as under his nose and the very bottom of his beard. Now I'm using dark umber for the line between his jaw and his neck. This area is more densely concentrated, so we don't need strokes, we can just color it right in. Now I'm using both French gray and white to blend that all into the skin. Another tip for beards is that in the most concentrated area, you want there to be the most color and the most lines. Then when it fades out into the neck or into the chin, you want the lines to be farther apart. I'm using both sienna brown and light umber to create the shadow of his hairline. This just makes a more natural transition between the skin and the hair. I'm now beginning to fill in all the darkest areas of his hair with the color dark umber. Then I will be using light umber to fade those areas out. Right now I'm being very light with my hand. I want it to look feathery. And now I'm using the color French gray to fill in most of the rest of his hair. Now I'm going in a little bit more darkly with the color cream to blend it all together. And to finish off the hair, I'm highlighting with white and then adding some flyaway hairs with the color black. Then I will be moving on to his jacket, starting with the darkest areas, like folds and creases. For these, I am using black. Then I will be using cool gray 50% to color in areas that are slightly lighter. If you don't know much about grays, the higher percentages, like 50 or 70%, are darker, and lower percentages, like 20%, are lighter. Here I am beginning to fade out that cool gray 50% so I can begin putting in the cool gray 20%. This is a leather jacket, which means it's a smooth texture, so we need to use a very hard hand to get those colors as smooth as possible. Now I'm beginning to draw his hoodie, and I'm still going from darkest to lightest, but there are no black areas, so instead the darkest color is going to be 50% gray, and the lightest color is going to be 20% gray. So I'm just blending those together, and then I'm going to add some white for highlighting. Now that the jacket and the hood are finished, I am blending absolutely everything together with the colorless blending pencil. Those two empty white areas on his jacket, those are zippers, and I'm coloring them in with light umber. Now finally, I'm coloring in his white t-shirt, but first I am adding a shadow with cool gray 20% before I color the rest of it in with plain old white. Next, I'll be drawing what looks to be some sort of dog chain necklace, so I'm starting by drawing little tiny balls with cool gray 50%. Then I will add some dimension by creating shadows on them with black and highlighting them with white. That's the completed product. Thank you so much for watching, and please like and subscribe. Thank you so much.